Hello, everyone. This is Juxtaposition. Welcome to my show. Tonight's video will be entitled The Big Reveal. The Big Reveal. We're going to discuss how it all works. That's right, the secret files will be discussed tonight on the Juxtaposition show exclusively. You won't get this with Anthony Napolitano or Victor Davis Hanson or Tucker Carlson. You won't get it from him. You won't get it from Joe Rogan or Alex Jones or Glenn Greenwald or Whitney Webb or Catherine Austin Fitz. You won't get it from her. No, you got to come to the Juxtaposition channel and become a paid member. All right. It's about the circle of trust, right, within a chain of command. In other words, a pyramid, a hierarchy, an obelisk, a chain of command. From the top level to the bottom level, there exists a ranking system, chain of command, and circle of trust within all levels of the obelisk, of all levels of a pyramid. You know, it could be like the Luxor Pyramid in Las Vegas at 3900 South Las Vegas Boulevard, with Carrot Top being the resident comedian, Jester, at that location. It's owned by Amazon. Amazon owns MGM Resorts, and MGM Resorts owns not only the MGM Hotel, they own the Pyramid across the street, which is across the street from 3901 South Las Vegas Boulevard, where they had the infamous Las Vegas shooting, killing, 60 people. It's a baseball throw across from the pyramid, the Luxor Pyramid, at a 3333 address, next door to Allegiant Stadium, where everyone stands for the national anthem and pledges their allegiance to a Swiss colonial flag called the United States flag, for the Stupid Bowl. The Stupid Bowl, that's at 4... What is the address of the Stupid Bowl? I used to know what it was. 3333 Al Davis Way. I kid you not. Oh my God. All right, so I believe they played that game on the 13th. Unity Monks Masons, February 13th, 2024. Or maybe it was 2025. No, it's 2024, I think. Anyway, doesn't matter. It was a Masonic date. So I'm going to explain to you how you could have something as preposterous, absurd, unfunny, ludicrous, like the COVID hoax, how you could do that repeatedly with any number of things. I mean, we do it throughout history. These are ancient rituals. They are humiliation rituals to see how dumb the population are, to confirm that the population hasn't grown a brain. Anyone who believed in COVID, anyone who believes in global pandemics as a whole, anyone who believes that there's climate change organically created, anybody who believes in that we have a democratic republic and that you vote for representatives who look out for your interests, you're a blithering idiot, and get off my channel. You're stupid. You're an idiot. You're dumber than dumb. You're super dumb. Okay? We have no republic. There's no democracy anywhere on the planet. There never has been. The Boy Scouts of America don't run on democratic principles. Okay? And neither does Propaganda Due or the Scottish Rites Temple or the Masonic temples or the Mormon Church or the Catholic Church. You do know that the Pope is not democratically elected, right? You do know that, right? The Pope of the Roman Catholic Church is not a democracy, right? It's a papal edict. You got the cardinals, and you got bishops, and you got the elite. And all those people have their own private condominiums too. I want to let you know that all of these orders, whether it's Donald Trump, or whether it's the Pentagon or NATO Supreme Commander in Geneva, Switzerland, or Brussels, Belgium, they have multiple Supreme Commanders. And whether it's them, military, or whether it's the World Bank or the International Monetary Fund, or whether it's Bank of America or Chase Manhattan Bank or Citibank, Citigroup, whether it's Credit Suisse or Union Bank of Switzerland, It matters not. It matters not. They all have a code of conduct that they must follow if you want to be on the board of directors, if you want to be an executive and get all the privileges that are assigned with that title. See, titles mean something. You have Sir Andrew Whitty, for example. He was knighted by the Queen, and he became the CEO of United Healthcare. And he's the one that was left out of the news articles involving the murder of Brian Thompson a year ago, in the wee hours of the morning in December, just 2 hours before their annual stockholder meeting at the Hilton Hotel in Midtown Manhattan on 54th Street, I believe it is, and 6th Avenue. The Avenue of the Americas is also the 6th Avenue, same street. Signs and symbols rule our world. I'm going to say it again in case you have wax in your ears. Signs and symbols rule our world. Yes, the obelisk is a sign. Street addresses are a sign. 666, 999, 1333. Those are all signs. 6 is a 33. So if you see a 6, you're looking at a 33. 33 is the highest level in the chain of command. The highest level of authority within the obelisk is number 6, or 33. The 33rd level. The 33rd level is the highest level. Now, in reality, there's higher levels than 33. But for purposes of talking on the internet, a military system, let's just go with 33 being the highest level of the Masonic order, or the Knights Templar, or the Knights of Malta, or Propaganda Due, or the Masonic orders. All right, so every different branch of authority within our society has a code of conduct. And it's more or less the same exact code of conduct for every operation functioning in a society that has economic activity, social order, social obedience, social adoption and acceptance, that there are certain ethical standards. And the code of conduct stipulates the following. Obedience is number one. If you want to assume a policy of authority, you must be obedient yourself, because guess what? You're going to take orders, and then you're going to carry out your orders. Your performance will be based on how effective you are for managing the people at the lower levels that you're stationed. You're stationed. You have a code of obedience. The next most important code, of course, is the Code of Omerta. Omerta, Code of Silence. I think you know that the mafia has a code of silence, right? It's called Omerta. Professional athletes, they have that exact code too. That Ellen DeGeneres' staff, they all have that code too, right? All of Hollywood has an Omerta code, 100%. So when you see your favorite Hollywood star go on a podcast and talk trash about how the industry works, like James Woods does, you might want to ask him how he rebuilt his home from the ashes so quickly when it never burned down. James Wood and Megyn Kelly did a little spoof last January 2025 where they pretended to cry crocodile tears about James Wood's mansion burning down in Pacific Palisades. But it turns out that was a big fat lie. They've never apologized for it. His home didn't burn down. It was all just to gaslight the people who believe in Megyn Kelly and who think that James Wood is a legitimate person. They're both phony, fraudulent actors, okay? So just disregard them. So you have the Code of Obedience, the Code of Secrecy. Now, if you're going to be a person of the status of a monk or a friar or a priest, you must take an oath of poverty. Poverty, if you want to be a man of God. You're supposed to live like Jesus Christ in poverty. It's a little bit of a contradiction because you'll notice that the Pope and the cardinals and the bishops of the various dioceses, archdioceses, they all live in chateaus, and they live in villas, and they live in mansions and grand homes with gardens. So apparently the oath of poverty only applies to the lower level parish priests living in a rectory. Then there's something called World Mission. And the world mission is where you're out there trying to improve the world. That's what's implied in it. But since the members of the circle and the chain of command, they don't decide the mission. That's decided at the 33rd level. And unless you're at that level, you don't know what the mission is, right? But you follow your orders. So the idea of a world mission, that you're doing good for the church, you're spreading the word of God, you're helping the poor, you yourself are poor, you can identify with the poor, you live in a gilded cage perhaps, or maybe you don't. You live in a cage. You have to work every day like a slave. You get water and food, rations, but you have this code of poverty, but you have code of world mission because you think you're doing well, but you don't decide the mission. But what you do have to pay attention on a daily basis is following your orders. Now, there's also a code of chastity, an oath of chastity. And this is supposed to be for the nuns and the Catholic priests, not for the Mormons who breed prodigiously, right? They want to grow their church so fast that they baptize dead people in cemeteries. That's how excited they are about, prodigiously breeding the numbers of the Mormon Church, LDS. So you see, some of these oaths you can't take too seriously because we have so many sex scandals in the Catholic Church, and yet there they have the code of chastity, which evidently isn't being strictly followed, right? But anyway, it's out there. It's not really that important of an oath because the obedience and the secrecy are more important. They're the key. If you get those wrong, then you'll be thrown out or done away with, or have a manic episode or murdered or something of that nature. But you will no longer function within the chain of command. You'll be cast out. So that's how they do it. Same situation for the Mormon LDS, the exact same situation for the Church of Scientology, the same situation for all organized religions throughout the world. They're all organized as a pyramid with circles of trust. Bishops, wards, stockholders, cardinals, and maybe a pope. You have your elders, and you have like the head guy who typically is kind of like Joe Biden, is in a wheelchair and they wheel him around. But he doesn't necessarily have to go to meetings. He just has to be available for occasional photo ops. That's how they run all organizations. It's like they run the colony Hunger Game called the United States, right? We had Joe Biden. He was clearly a senile dementia for his entire 4 years. And now we have Trump, who doesn't have a clue what's going on in the world, right? I mean, he has no idea. We have military plane dumping aluminum chemtrails everywhere. He never says a word about it. And neither do any of the TV doctors. Dr. Phil, he's a complete clueless buffoon imbecile. Dr. Phil. Dr. Drew Pensky, clueless idiot, should never see patients. Good news is Dr. Drew doesn't see patients. He does not see patients. He looks at a television camera. He does podcasts. And you got Dr. Oz, another clueless, blithering idiot. Dr. Oz, Dr. Drew, Dr. Phil, all people to be ignored. You spend exactly 0% of your time talking or listening to TV doctors. All right, so they have code of omerta, they have code of obedience. Exactly how Oprah does, right? And Dr. Phil was born from Oprah. Oprah was the one who presented Dr. Phil, who's actually not a medical doctor, was never a medical doctor, where Dr. Drew and Dr. Oz actually have medical doctor degrees but don't see patients. And like Simone Gold has a medical degree but doesn't see patients. You see, you have these people who actually do have the degrees, but they don't see patients. So they're really not qualified to talk about public health because they don't know anything about who the public is. They never see the public. All they do is talk to their agent, their art and repertoire rep, and their wardrobe and makeup artists. All right, so everywhere in our society is infiltrated and impenetrated within an obelisk military chain of command system that has circles of trust And actors and the Screen Actors Guild and the directors and the producers at Hollywood, all the executives of the studios, they are also in a circle of trust within the entertainment industry. This will fan out into music, television, film, Netflix, documentaries, pseudo documentaries. This would include Oliver Silverstein Stone. This would include Larry Silverstein, the developer of the World Trade Center. There's another Silverstein. This is going to envelop Eric Weinstein, Harvey Weinstein, Brett Weinstein, Harrison Weinstein. There's a boatload of Weinsteins. They're all compromised and in a circle of trust themselves. Alan Dershowitz, Noam Chomsky, Woody Allen, they're all in a cult with Jeffrey Epstein. So they're up to their eyeballs with the Little Lolita Express and perhaps Little St. James Island and perhaps now it's called Rancho de San Rafael. There's no more Zorro Ranch. They changed the name. They changed the name of the road. Changed the name of the 10,000 acre property. It's 10,000 acres. It's 10,000 acres. They sublease part of it, so it's maybe 7,600, 8,000 acres, but it's 10,000 acres. Plus, they partner with the neighbors next door. So when I say 10,000, I guess what I'm saying is 60,000 acres. It's 60,000 acres. Because if you add up all the cohorts, 360 degrees around the Zorro Ranch, you end up with, 60 to 100,000 acres. It could be a smart city. And someday probably will be a Donald Trump Freedom City. Anyway, Hollywood is a great metaphor to use because the way Hollywood is structured, which is military and was created by the Spanish and then the Mexicans and then the Union Army, and it has all these dead-end cul-de-sacs where it puts its operatives into those cul-de-sacs where they can surveil them 24/7 and murder them if necessary and or spook them if necessary, which it turns out it is necessary to occasionally have murder. It's occasionally necessary to frighten their own people and to murder their children. Look at all the people in the military or military contractors and Hollywood who have dead children, especially the eldest daughter. You've got Art Linkletter, the number one children's television entertainer. He did 25 years at CBS. He did 15 years at NBC. That's 40 years as a leader in children's entertainment. He had his youngest daughter, Diane Linkletter, thrown off her 6th-floor balcony onto her face planted onto the sidewalk, and she was 20 years old. He had his son-in-law murdered just 2 months before that, John Zweier, who was married to his eldest daughter at the time. So he didn't have his eldest daughter killed, but his eldest daughter's husband was killed. His son-in-law was murdered by being shot in the head, sitting next to a swimming pool in West Hollywood. Then his youngest daughter was killed in West Hollywood, not far from where his son-in-law had been killed. His son-in-law was killed in July, and his daughter was killed on October 2nd. So you're talking about, Sharon Tate murder, which Art Linkletter knew Sharon Tate. He knew Tom Coomer, Jay Sebring, he knew him. So he knew those two. He knew his son-in-law. He knew his daughter, Diane. And all those 4 people were killed between just before the moon landing, the hoax of a moon landing, just before there, until October 2nd. So you're talking about August and September in 2 months. 2 months and a couple weeks. 2 months, 2 months and a week, 2 months and 10 days. 4 people that Art Linkletter knew were murdered, and they were all under the age of 32 years old. Jay Sebring was, I believe, 32 years old. So very, very much predictable if you know Hollywood. Then you've got Lou Brown, Nicole Brown's father. He had 2 of his eldest daughters. He has 2 families. He has 2 eldest daughters. They were both killed. The first family, his daughter was killed at age 39. His second family, Nicole, was killed at age 35. So that's 2 eldest daughters that he had die. Then we have John Ramsey of Lockheed Martin, executive vice president and also president of Access Graphics first in in Marietta, Georgia, and then moved to Boulder, Colorado, where Boeing and Lockheed do business with the University of Colorado Research University right there in Boulder. Who would expect that you're doing military weaponry and spy satellites there? But they are. Anyway, he had two daughters killed. He had his eldest daughter, Elizabeth, was killed in Cicero, Illinois at age 22. And I believe that was in 1992. And then 4 years later, he has his youngest daughter of his second marriage, JonBenét Ramsey, beauty queen, garroted and displayed in his wine cellar at age 6. So that's two daughters killed for John Ramsey. For Lewis Brown of NATO, and he is a military intelligence spy, if you didn't know. That's right. And he also owns a Hertz rent-a-car franchise. So you could say that OJ maybe reports to Lou, right? Lou may be his control agent. Lou Brown had two daughters killed. John Ramsey, two daughters killed. The head of the CIA was William Colby. He had his eldest daughter killed, Catherine Colby, killed in the second week as director of CIA. His second week at work, his eldest daughter died at age 22. John Ramsey's eldest daughter, Elizabeth, died at age 22 also. 22 is a Masonic 1111, if you didn't know. So, what else I got there? Gordon Getty. He had his eldest son killed. Andrew Getty was killed off Woodrow Wilson Drive, very close to where Abigail Folger was living, and close to where Cass Elliot, Natalie Wood used to have a house. Right walking distance from that house, about a block away, was Andrew Getty, was murdered by having a broomstick stuck up his anus. I'm not joking. That's what a real story happened. Then later, a few years later, I think 10 years later, Gordon Getty's second son, John Getty, was murdered in a manic episode in a yogi pose in a hotel room in San Antonio, Texas, just 1 year before Ivy Love Getty was married and divorced. Her father couldn't give her away because her father had died exactly 1 year before her wedding. So Gordon Getty gave Ivy Love away, and Nancy Pelosi, not wearing her face diaper for COVID, in the height of COVID, on the stairs that the murderer of George Moscone and Harvey Milk walked up those stairs to kill two people in a double homicide. Those exact stairs used by Dan White to kill the mayor of San Francisco and Councilman Harvey Milk. Ivy Love Getty was married on those steps with Nancy Pelosi presiding. Okay? That's about as satanic as you can get, people. Is that a sign and symbol? Do you think they signed up for that, or you think someone told Gordon Getty, this is what you're going to do? You're going to pay $20 million for a 4-day event for your granddaughter, and then you're going to have her cite her vows on a staircase in a double homicide murder. Okay? Right? And she got filed for divorce 6 months after the ceremony, so it's kind of a fake wedding, right? It's fake. Vogue magazine covered it, right? You know, Vogue magazine covered the Manson trial too, right? I mean, Vogue, everywhere you look, there's Vogue. Joan Didion, Vogue, slut dresses. You know, I got weddings on murder sites, murder scenes. I hope you understand these are all ways to remind people about their code of obedience and secrecy, omerta codes, right? You do know that, right? And then there's the parties, okay? And everything is focused, while I'm doing this today, which is in 2026, on the 18th of March, is that Jeffrey Epstein this and Jeffrey Epstein that. Well, first of all, I have no idea if Jeffrey Epstein is alive or dead. I have no idea. I have no idea if Tom Hanks is alive or dead. I have no idea if Anne Heche is alive or dead. I don't know, what's going on with these people that go missing. We have quite a few people that have gone quiet. Oprah is presumably alive, but she doesn't do interviews anymore. Noam Chomsky, he was a big badass during COVID, saying that all the unvaccinated people should be segregated from society. You don't hear a peep out of Noam Chomsky. Okay, you don't hear anything out of Alan Dershowitz. You couldn't keep him off television. Alan Dershowitz, a real scumbag, pathological liar, which is what Noam Chomsky is, which is what Alan Dershowitz is. I mean, Noam Chomsky could be an attorney. Oprah, she's gone quiet. But the media has declared that Anne Heche is dead. And Ellen DeGeneres is very quiet, presumably still alive, but she's quiet. Martin Luther King is presumably dead. RFK dead. JFK dead. Aaron Valente dead. Jeffrey Thomas, the gay lover of Peter Thiel, dead. But we don't really know where the hell Oprah is and where Ellen DeGeneres really is. I can tell you this: Ellen DeGeneres' executive producer, her producer, was murdered on Ventura Boulevard, and that signaled the end of Ellen DeGeneres' career. They shot her executive producer, Stephen Twitchboss, in the head in a cheapo hotel, an El Cheapo Hotel, 1 block from Phil Hartman's murder. Phil Hartman was shot in the head twice. 1 block from where Stephen Twitchboss was shot once in the head. And they called it a suicide. And there's a lot of people get killed in that neighborhood. Richard Pryor lived in that neighborhood too. Now, he didn't get shot in the head, but he apparently was running down the street on fire from a cocaine blaze, allegedly. But what I want you to know is that Ellen DeGeneres' career was torpedoed at the moment that the bullet entered the brain of her executive producer, Stephen Twitchboss. And it's rumored that Ellen DeGeneres hosted parties at one of her, nice homes. She has multiple homes, and she has a big home supposedly in Montecito, Santa Barbara. But you see, that makes sense because she has her own TV show. Johnny Carson could have done that, but certainly Art Linkletter could have done that. Elton John does that. Oprah does that. They host parties. I know Elton John hosts parties. He hosts parties in Beverly Hills, and he hosts private parties in Beverly Hills and private parties in Buckhead in Atlanta, Georgia, which is a suburb. It's a wealthy enclave of Atlanta. And Elton John hosts parties there, and probably in London and other places where he has access to private chateaus, which he doesn't own. And Oprah doesn't own her property, and Ellen DeGeneres doesn't own anything. But they are assigned these properties with housekeepers and landscapers, and then they host parties. It's not because they want to host the party. They're ordered to host a party. And at that party, all the guests, have to sign non-disclosure agreements. They have to put their cell phones into a Faraday case, and then enter the party, whereupon, they're given alcohol, and then they're served food, and then allegedly they're told that the food has human flesh or some cannibalism in it. And it doesn't make any difference if that's true or they murdered some child and everyone's going to drink the blood and eat the flesh, sort of like consecration of the host and wine in the Catholic Church. That consumption of the food will lead to transformation. Eating the vitality of a young person gives you, eternity in the meta universe, right? The Facebook plus Control Labs equals meta, which means dead. But if you turn the infinity sign on its side, you have live forever. So meta, because that the slogan for Facebook is meta, turned on its side, which is infinity, which means you live forever. Like eating children, cannibalizing children, right? It doesn't matter if you do it in reality or you do it like the Catholic Church does, where they fake it. It's fake. It's a hoax. It only matters that we all do it together, and then we're all in the club. We're all part of the parish. We all agree. And another way to do it would be like if you want to join the mafia, they would send you out with a murder crew. And knowing that you're new, you wouldn't have to participate, but you have to stand there and watch them torture or murder someone. And then you're implicated in the crime, Although you didn't do it, you witnessed it, right? And you could do that in all kinds of ways. You could use the Mormon church basement and, hold children underwater, tell them to praise to Satan, to praise Satan, or else they'll drown. You can do deals with the devil to become baptized into a church. Baptism is one of the ancient rites that all religions believe in, the Catholic Church. And we have First Holy Communion, we have confirmation, we have the sacrament of confession, and entering into marriage. There's all of these different ancient rituals, sacred rituals. The Mormon Church has them, the Catholic Church has them, and has had them for much longer. Judaism has them. The Church of Scientology has auditing rituals. There are all these rituals to open up your vulnerability and make you obey authority, the authority of the church, the papal edicts to obey, and to obey the World Health Organization, to obey Klaus Schwab, or today Larry Ratfink of the World Economic Forum, to obey Christine Lagarde, formerly of the International Monetary Fund, right? Or Larry Ratfink, or you're going to obey Steve Jobs, or you're going to, well, he's dead. So let's take Bill Gates. You're going to obey Bill Gates or Larry Ellison. You're going to obey Jeffrey Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg. You're going to obey Eric Schmidt of Google. You're going to obey him. Alphabet's Google. Peter Thiel of Palantir, who has no technology experience whatsoever. None. He went to Stanford and studied history. You're going to listen to Victor Davis Hanson boss you around, tell you about masking and COVID. You're going to listen to Brett Weinstein, whose brother was the money launderer for Peter Thiel. Eric Weinstein ran Founders Fund and money for Peter Thiel. You're going to listen to those knuckleheads. All right. This is how the cult works. Every person's name who I mentioned is compromised to some degree. And the higher up an authority you go within your area, within your chain of command, the more perverted your rituals will be. So you don't have to be eating children's flesh or looking at human sacrifice if you're down at level 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. But if you want to jump up to level 29, 30, 31, you're going to have to get involved with murder or human sacrifice at some point. This would be true for Walter Cronkite, Dan Rather, David Brinkley, Chet Huntley, Steve Bannon, because he had a big radio show, Roger Stone, who apparently is throwing rocks at Steve Bannon now. Both of them intimately familiar with Jeffrey Epstein and all of Epstein's properties. And I would assume that Steve Bannon probably has been to the Zorro Ranch because not only was Steve Bannon a supporter of Jeffrey Epstein, he was a supporter of the persons whose property was turned over to the Christian in Texas who is running for Attorney General, and he was a assemblyman in the Lone Star State of Texas. Steve Bannon is a supporter of Christian values for Republicans, and that's who owns Zorro Ranch, right? And guess who owns Ronald Reagan Ranch? Young Republicans and Young America, which is very much a Steve Bannon green-lighted operation. So do you think they had sex parties at Ronald Reagan's ranch, maybe when Ronnie wasn't there? I do. It's very isolated. No one's going to know. The Santa Barbara sheriff isn't allowed to go on that property. The road turns to dirt when you get close to the ranch. It's paved up to a point, and then it's a couple miles of dirt road only. All right, so what I want to tell you is that Ronald Reagan Ranch, North Fox Island in Lake Michigan, Blue Bay Camp in Flathead Lake in Montana, Zorro Ranch, Little St. James Island. Those are all easy peasy, children molestation sites to bring adults, fly the adults in. But there are 10,000 other sites because you can do it in Pacific Heights, you can do it in Seacliff, you could do it in Tiburon or Belvedere. You can do it in any enclave like Atherton or in Long Island, New York, or you could do it on the Barbary Coast. You can do it in Miami. You can do it in Biscayne Bay on one of those 4 or 5 islands out there, Palm Island, Venezia Island, You could do it where the Bush family is. You could do it where the Kennedy compound is in Palm Beach, Florida. You can do it in Malibu. You can do it anywhere in Palm Beach, and you could do it at Mar-a-Lago. You could do it at the Trump residences or the Trump apartment buildings, condominium buildings. You can do any of these things in any of these high security areas, right? It's all about security getting in and out, making sure the right people get in and escape. All right, so whether your name is Lance Armstrong or Bill Maher or Tom Brady or Terry Bradshaw or Howie Long, or Michael Strahan, or Marion Jones, Tim Montgomery, or God help you if your name is Bruce Jenner, Caitlyn, you're compromised. You are in a cult, and you're a part of a circle of trust within one of the levels. And I would suggest to you that all the people you see on television or on podcasts, they're not at the highest level. So a Victor Davis Hanson, a Donald Trump, a Lance Armstrong, a Tom Brady, they're not at the highest level. They're more of a working class man, get a nice home, nice car. They travel though, and they work relentlessly. They are not allowed to just goof off all day. Just like Ellen DeGeneres, just like Oprah, just like Dr. Phil, they're in a gilded cage. They get a nice home, they get housekeepers, but they hate their jobs. They all universally hate their jobs. They have a code of obedience and a code of silence above all else. And they can steamroll anyone and get away with it because they're protected. They can be arrested, but they cannot be convicted. They cannot really be seriously convicted. When they convicted Jeffrey Epstein, they gave him the key to the jail. So he was only there for 5 to 6 hours per day for a few months. But he went right back to his mansion in Palm Beach and to his office or to his home office. He didn't spend much time in that Palm County jail. I believe that's what it was, Palm Beach County Jail. You know, where they killed George DeMornshield in that county. You don't think that county isn't corrupt? Every county in a Hunger Game is corrupt. That means my county's corrupt and your county is corrupt. That means all your judges are corrupt. That means your sheriff's department is corrupt. That means your district attorney office is corrupt. That means your state attorney general is corrupt. That's what that means. And the more time they talk about Jeffrey Epstein, the less they're talking about the Christians that are out there molesting children, whilst you're paying attention to Joe Rogan and Alex Jones and all these Pied Pipers of poppycock and balderdash. Anyway, that's the big reveal today, is that that's how a COVID policy can go down. Everybody's controlled, so they're all going to agree universally that there's such a thing as space alien invasions. They're going to believe in climate action. We have to do something because there's too much carbon dioxide in the air, whilst we're pouring plastic and aluminum and arsenic in the air every 10 minutes, is that you deny reality and you promote poppycock. And everybody agrees. And that includes Neil Young, a polio survivor from Toronto, Canada. He agrees. And he agrees with COVID and mandatory vaccination. And so does Gene Simmons, whose real name is Chaim Witz from Israel. He is not who you think he is. And he's not a family man either. So the thing is that if bass players for Kiss are corrupt and peaceniks like Neil Young are corrupt, who isn't corrupt? And it's a real simple answer. Nobody. They're all corrupt, 100%. Joanne Woodward is corrupt. Ronald Reagan was corrupt. Okay. Jimmy Cagney was corrupt. Cary Grant was corrupt. Jimmy Stewart was corrupt. Johnny Carson was corrupt. Freddie DeCordova corrupt. You know, Harvey Weinstein's corrupt. It's 100%. Like, which athlete on my favorite baseball team isn't taking illegal drugs? And the answer is there's no one on that list. Everyone is taking illegal drugs. Which baseball team doesn't, forfeit the game due to rigging? None. They all do it. There's a director that's in charge of the baseball games, and they already know who's going to be in the World Series of Baseball, who's going to be in the playoffs. And then you can have some games that are less rigged than others, but it's very easy to fix games and it's very easy to decide the World Series. It wasn't a one-time thing in 1919. It's an every year thing that the television advertisers look at their ratings and look at their revenue and decide who should win. Then this falls into the professional gambling, gaming area of sportsbook, which is totally corrupt. And again, all they want to do is just to get as many addictive, degenerate gamblers to put money in the pot. Because the gaming industry, you take your 10% right off the top. Then you pay out what's left to the winners, okay, which are very few winners versus the losers. There's more losers than winners, of course. But the winners are happy and they're not going to care if it's rigged or not, so long as they got paid, right? Winners go to dinner. They don't go down to the sheriff's department and file a criminal complaint. They don't do that. That's how it works. That's the big reveal. The reveal is law enforcement is corrupt and they get paid too. And the media is corrupt. They do propaganda and balderdash, ministry of fakeness. They do everything fake. So they're covering up felony crimes. So they're implicated in all crimes, 100%. Because if they don't report the crime, that's a form of dishonest journalism. All right, that's it. Do share my videos. I am heavily shadow banned. Take care now. Bye-bye.